Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you how to make hills for your wargaming table that your models can stand on 100% of them. Let's get saucy.
Hobby Sauce.
Thanks for coming back to Hobby Sauce, guys. Today I'm starting a new series. This is a beginner's guide to terrain, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from the easy to the hard how to make wargaming terrain for your table. And when we're done, you should be able to have a vast array of wargaming terrain everywhere. We're talking blocking, rough, obstacles, forests, hills, rocks, the whole 9 yards. And I'm going to culminate the series showing you how to make a display board for your army so that you can take it to a tournament and just look snazzy. Today I'm going to show you how to make a simple hill for your tabletop. And the big selling point for this particular hill is that a model can stand on any portion of it. I don't know about you, but it drives me nuts when I can't stand on a portion of a hill. And some hills, man, it just seems like they're gorgeous, but the problem is I can't stand on them. My models always fall apart. Maybe the incline goes up too high. Who knows? But the problem is, whatever the most cataclysmic, clustered fight that exists on the whole game, that's where we tend to fight. Right on that hill, right where we can't stand on it. And it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. So what I'm going to show you today is how to make a hill that looks like this, okay? It's not the prettiest hill you've ever seen. It's not ugly, but it's not the prettiest thing you've ever seen. But what it does is it's playable on all areas, okay? It's not particularly high. That's just something that you have to deal with if you're going to make a hill like this. You can make them higher, but it's going to have to be tremendously larger. So if you're okay with large hills, you can make this higher. But the big thing is that you can play on all of it. You're going to have no problems whatsoever. I'd say about 95% of models can stand on this with no problem. The other 5%, I mean, that's an acceptable range for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what materials you need to get started, and then I'll show you how to make it, okay? Let's get started, guys. Now, to start off, to make this hill, you don't need many materials. In fact, most of the materials that you need, you probably already have from wargaming. The two things that are going to be essential to making this hill cost less than 10 bucks, not together, but less than 10 bucks, and you'll get a lot from that. So, first thing we're going to need is insulation foam. This is the hard stuff. You'll notice this is not the white styrofoam packing you might get in your TV boxes or something like that. This is more for insulation, okay? This goes in walls. Normally pink or blue, you can find this at a hardware store. This is a 2x2 foot board, and it's only $8 at Home Depot, so pretty simple. The other thing you're gonna need is hardboard, masonite. People call it different things, but here's what's important about it. One, it has a really rough side, you see? You can hear that. And then it has a smooth side too. You can hear that. This is the side we're going to be adhering the hill to, and then this is the side we're going to be putting on the table. And this extra texture that's on there is really going to help it just stay on the table. It's also very hard. It's like MDF, but it's a lot cheaper. This is the same stuff that pegboard is made out of, so if you know where pegboard is in your hardware store, you want to go there. In addition to these two items, you're going to need a tape measurer. I hope you have this if you wargame. You're gonna need a marker, a pencil, something to draw with, and a hobby knife. All right? Other than that, you're gonna need one more item. Not with me right now, but I'll just do it off camera. You're gonna need something to cut this with. If you're using one of these to cut this with, I don't wanna hear about it. You're gonna lose a finger. You need a jigsaw or something else. You can get a jigsaw at Walmart for $20 and it will perfectly cut what you need. You can see I've already cut pieces like this off of it.
So we're getting started here on the wargaming hill. What's important here is that you measure everything as you draw it. What I'm doing right now is I'm making sure everything is at least, at minimum, 6 inches wide in all spots. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't go further. You're absolutely welcome to go further, but it needs to be at least 6 inches wide at all spots. In fact, I would do 7 or 8 in most cases. I think I'm doing 8.5 here. And the reason for that is so that you can have some flat surface up on top of your hill. What I'm doing is I'm drawing a little circle around here, and you can see right now, that's how much flat space we're going to have up on at the top. And you don't have to do that in this drawing stage. The reason I'm doing that in this drawing stage is I want to make sure my hill is going to work. Once you have this drawing down, all you have to do is cut it out on your jigsaw. Alright, so here we have 2 cut pieces. They're good to go now, but we have one problem. They are a little untamed on the edges, as you can see right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take out our hobby knife, and we're going to tame that. So just take the edge and apply it at a 45-degree angle and cut away from yourself, and you'll bevel the edge quite quickly. It doesn't take that long, but always be sure to cut away from yourself so that you don't harm yourself in the process. If you want to give blood to the hobby gods, you do it on your own time. Always practice knife safety. This is going to leave a lot of trimmings. Be sure to clean those up. Our wives deal with enough as it is, and we don't have to leave a messy table. We come back after the cut, and you can see it's a nice, clean, beveled edge now. That's exactly what we want to continue. Now that we have our nice, clean edge, we're going to cut a piece of foam about the size of the band. Now you can see I'm just making some easy cuts in there, and then I'm going to cut easily and away from myself down that styrofoam. Once you have this cut out, we're going to take it out and place it on top of our board. Now we have a piece of styrofoam that's about the size of our circle here. So I'm just going to cut off the edges here quickly and easily. And now I'm just going to glue this down. So we're going to take some wood glue and just lay this all around the edges. That's all you have to do. And once you have it laid all the way around the edges, you're going to put the styrofoam on top of it. And after the styrofoam's on top, you're going to need some sort of heavy object to place down it. Clamps would be great. If you don't have clamps, you can just use a heavy book. And here we have the finished product. They're glued down, and if you look at it, you can see it's right up against the hardboard. That's important. If there are any gaps there, you need to glue it back, maybe clamp some more edges. Now, here's the most important part about making this hill. You have to measure 3 inches from the side in all directions and make this beautiful little circle, oval. The shape depends on how you cut your hill, but that is important. That's the flat space up at the top, and we're going to cut away from that in all areas for 3 inches or more. You can have a more shallow incline, but we're just going to cut here, and we are going to cut up to that black mark that I have up there on the front. You see here, that's not deep enough. The incline that we're going to be making is straight from the black edge to the end. And I'll show you a finished product here in a minute. But what's really important is that you have the super shallow incline. And that's the edge that's going to allow us to rest our models on top of it. This takes a while. You'll see a little bit of the cutting here. Ultimately, I'm going to fast forward. And here's the finished product. You can see on the edge now, that is super shallow. The hardboard goes straight up into the styrofoam. There's no difference there. That's what you want. Now this is a super rough edge. I think you can probably tell that. Right here, we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to sand this. We're going to take some fine grit sandpaper, 120, 50, something like that. And we're going to sand the whole edges here. If you use anything coarser, you'll really rip up the styrofoam, but that grit should be perfect. And we're just going to sand this until it looks smooth again. You can see the difference here from a sanded versus a non-sanded. That is a smooth hill, and that's what we want. So I'm going to do that to this other one, and we'll keep rolling. Here comes the part that's going to make it look like a hill. I'm going to take some wood glue here. You could use PVA as well. I mean, wood glue is PVA, but you could use white glue. And then I'm just going to mix some water in with it. The water is about 50-50 glue water mix. And then we're going to stir this together. I use the back end of my paintbrush. You can use a stirring stick, your hand, I don't know, your dog's tail if you stand still long enough. But we want this really good and mixed. And once we have it mixed, we're going to use this as the glue agent. So when you're gluing down, always be sure to put something on in between the table and where you're doing. I'm just using some old styrofoam bits that we cut off a moment ago, and then I just placed the hill right on top. The reason you do that is because if you don't do that, the glue is going to seep underneath and actually glue itself to your table. It is correctable, but it can make a mess, and you don't want to do that. So now I'm just going to completely cover this with this glue water mixture. And once we have it completely covered, I'm going to cover this with sand. I have this in a Woodland Scenic shaker, but it is just sand, really fine sand. And once it's all down and dry, we're going to go over it with another coat. What this does is it reactivates the glue and makes sure that you basically have a glue layer on the bottom and on the top of your sand so it stays on really nice and well. You basically sandwich the sand in between the two glue pieces. And this is really important for PVA gluing. If you don't do this, the sand eventually will come off. We're going to do the same thing with the flock, and again, it'll come off. Now, once we have it all set, I'm going to spray paint it brown first. This is kind of a reddish brown, and then I've chosen a greenish brown to dry brush on top of it. I'll have other videos that go over exactly how to dry brush and why I would choose a green brown and a red brown to go together. You could choose other colors. It's not important. I like this combination, and I just dry brush the whole thing. What we're doing is we're getting most of the paint off with a paper towel and then leaving the little bit of paint inside that brush and going over it. Eventually, it's going to look different. You can tell it's really changing the color based off of the one on the left. We're not going to see much of this, but it is good. Now I'm going to take some PVA, just some white Elmer's school glue. You could use any sort of thing you have, any sort of craft glue will work. I'm going to put it down. I'm not using wood glue here because wood glue can dry a little yellow, and that's not something I want when we actually add the flock. So just getting a nice thin consistency there, kind of thicker than milk, but way thinner than glue for sure. And then we're just going to glue all this over the top. Obviously, we allowed the paint to dry, and then I'm just going to do that. And again, you saw that I put that block underneath. That's really important. We're just going to cover this entire surface again. Then we're going to put the flock on. Now, I use Woodland Scenic's flock. You could use anything you want. It does not matter. This is all aesthetics here. The base of the hill is already completed. But I just use a variety of flocks that I'm showing you to the camera right now. It's really important to get a variety of flocks in to make your thing look realistic. If you use only one type of flock, you're not going to get a realistic coat. So I'm putting down kind of a dirt consistency here. And I'm just kind of sporadically put here. I want this to be mostly a grassy hill, so I'm going to cover up most of this, but it just adds a little layer of interest in here. And then I'm going to add some green flock. I'm just going to sprinkle that here. This is kind of the most vibrant one, so I put the most vibrant on the bottom so that I can cover it up later to make it look more realistic. And again, I'm just using these shakers and shaking it. You can see there's not really a method here. The whole point is that it looks kind of fluid and organic, so don't think about it too much. I just know that I want a lot on it here, so I'm putting a good amount. Then I'm going to kind of get this yellowish earth blend, and I really like this. I think, it's very uncommon to see just completely green fields. Certainly from where I live in West Texas, we don't even know what green is, so I always put a lot of this on here, but I'm going to cover it up a little bit more. Because I think that's a little too much. So what I'm going to finally use is this burnt grass. I love burnt grass. Burnt grass is kind of a catch-all color. It really hides everything. You know how when you wash minis, it kind of blends everything together? Burnt grass really kind of just blends everything together. So I almost always put this on as my final coat. Once that's dry, we're going to pick it up and kind of dust off the parts that didn't stick. You can see a good amount falls off there. And then after we have all of that off, give it a nice blow, a nice dusting, we're going to take some PVA and just glue on top again, just like we did with the sand. Again, we're reactivating the glue on the bottom and then putting glue on top of it as well, kind of sandwiching this in. It's very important to do this step if you're going to be using this for wargaming because you're going to be putting a lot of guys on top of it. And if you want it to hold together forever, this step is essential. This will take a while to dry, and then we're going to have a complete hill.
There we go. The hill's complete. Now, let me show you what I was talking about, guys. Let's take some standard models, maybe a really heavy model, and let's stand him on this hill. He has no problem whatsoever. We can kind of move him around. And again, no issue. Obviously on the top, he's going to be okay. And that can happen on a variety of different models. So let's take this guy right here. He can come up. Maybe he wants to fight this unit of bloodletters right here, you know. Maybe they can stand up. Whole thing right there, smash. Great, there's no issue. We don't have any problems with where they're standing. We can have this come over in different areas. And for the most part, everything's going to be just fine. If you have a really top-heavy model, you may have a couple issues. But for the most part, everything's going to work really great on this. There you have it, folks. Pretty easy, pretty quick. Now, subsequent videos in this series are going to build on the techniques that we learned today and create more complicated terrain. The next thing I'm going to show you how to make is blocking terrain, and we're going to use cork bark and a couple of other materials to make a good, nice looking piece of terrain that functions as blocking in Kings of War and Warhammer 40K or anything like that. It'd be a good piece of terrain that you can hide behind. Maybe stand on top of. So it just depends on how it works for your game. I'm not making these terrains for any specific game. These can be used for any game. All right, guys. Well, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you. If you're interested in making other types of hills with more rocky cliff faces, let me know, and I'll show you how to do that eventually. But for right now, I'm going to leave it to you. So be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can see additional content for me. And if you want to check out one of my battle reports, go for it right up there. And I'll have more additional tutorials right over here when I get them filmed for you, okay? Thanks so much, guys. Stay saucy.
Happy sauce.